Hello. Today, I'm going to be making a mistake. I'll be returning to Bioshock Infinite after a decade after my first playthrough. At some point during the process of writing all of these videos, I realized something terrible. I'm going to make a video about Bioshock Infinite. I would offer up my love of this game on the altar of changing opinions. I mean, Noah Caldwell-Gervais loved this game when it came out and highly praised it. I trust him, so maybe I'll like it, right? I am more politically aware now than I was July 10th, 2014. That said, I never understood all the hatred of the Daisy Fitzroy stuff. Sure, this character becomes bloodthirsty, but also, it's a different universe. To me, it just read as, anyone has the possibility to be corrupted, because this isn't what happened to our Daisy. This is what happened to one who lost everything. I'm getting ahead of myself. I loved this game when I first played it. I beat it in 2 sittings. I played it for 4 hours, went to bed, woke up, and then played the next 4. I've never been so grabbed by any piece of media before that in my life. Bioshock Infinite and The Last of Us both came out the same year, and there was a debate of which of them was the game of the year. Well, I hated the characters of The Last of Us, and the gameplay wasn't any better. My PS3 died right at the start of the fall chapter, and I wasn't going to replay the rest of the game, so I just finished it on YouTube. Joel is a piece of shit. I think they wrote that well. I still don't like the game, and no, I will not make a video essay about The Last of Us. People complained that going from this beautiful, peaceful world into the most over-the-top, violent murdering was ludonarrative dissonance, but I disagree there. This beauty that you're upset about getting turned into violence isn't an apartheid state. This violence was always present. You're just bringing it to the surface. Should the game give you the choice to throw the baseball? Look, the first Bioshock lets you kill children for personal gain. This asks you if you want a hate crime with no change in plot. People were upset that neither option has an effect on the plot, but would you really be praising the game if throwing the baseball let you blend in to avoid combat? I think the baseball scene mostly works, and it is uncomfortable and gross. This game not having a good path or evil path gives no reason to replay the game and see what happens if you did commit the hate crime. I get that there being no condemnation for the player choosing to hate crime does feel wrong, but the only people around to judge you are bigots and you yourself, the player. If you did choose to throw the baseball your first playthrough, hi Punk Duck, I hope you enjoy the video. People complain that the violence in this game is against regular people and not crazed splicers, and maybe it's just me, but I would rather kill racist fundamentalists than drug addicts.
Brother Washington, hear my prayer.
It always does.
Religion can drive people to do just as bad things as drugs. Maybe worse. And the game is gorgeous. The art direction is stunning, and the beauty here is used for the purpose of making the violence in this game even more gruesome. The scene of self-immolation is one I'll never forget. The ending of the game shows you surrounded by multiple Elizabeths, one of which is the Elizabeth from the earlier trailers for the game. All of these versions of the games that could have existed, the multiverse partially feels like a stand-in for the somewhat troubled game development. The game is playing opposite to Bioshock 1's interest in player choice. Infinite is about the unimportance of them. The coin flip, the bird or the cage, which gun do you kill that guy with? It doesn't matter. The game is a story being told, and nothing you can do can break from that. You can have issues with the plot, but it doesn't matter. You're not writing the story.
Hey, Miss Elizabeth.
Hello! Oh, this is wonderful! Well, come dance with me, Mr. Twin.
I don't dance. Come on, let's go.
Why? What could be better than this?
How about Paris?
Paris? I don't understand. How could we get there?
That's where that airship's going, but if you want to stay and dance, we
No,
can...
let's go! Come on, let's go! Come on, let's go right now!
The characters are the focus of this game, and that is why I loved it when I played it. The nitpicks in the world building didn't bother me because I was too engrossed with Elizabeth and Booker to notice them. They both felt like some of the most well-acted and fleshed-out characters I've seen in a video game. Elizabeth is a character of action. While you free her at the start of the game, she gains more and more agency, and not long into the game, she is guiding you. I had no idea where this game was going, and only after beating the game and restarting it did I see that there were so many details foreshadowing everything. A bad plot twist is one you can't see coming. This is how you do a good plot twist.
The drink, the gambling, and of course, Anna.
People complained that the game dumbed down the difficulty of Bioshock to give this game mass market appeal. Personally, I thought Bioshock 1 wasn't fun to play, so I didn't care. And after the big reveal, the game loses all of its momentum, and actually I do remember loving the part after you get the reveal and then your plasmids keep switching on their own. That was great. That's it. The game feel and momentum of Bioshock Infinite is great fun. I love the combat encounters, excluding the ghost fight. I don't know what that was. Why was there a ghost in this game? Sure, the game isn't difficult, but it makes up for that by having a really great flow state. That's pretty easy to get into. I ended up mostly using the same gear, guns, and vigors the whole game, never reconsidering my strategy, but I didn't find that boring for some reason. I guess if they limited the amount of ammo you could carry, then I would have been encouraged to try different weapons, but foreshadowing. The Skyrail system's ability to let you reposition during combat just felt like a dream to play, and diving off to kill someone also felt great. Combat felt weighty, and the non-automatic guns all felt really heavy. Knocking people off ledges was always satisfying every single time, and the melee kills were... Burial at Sea Parts 1 and 2 made me love the game even more. The slight switch up in gameplay in Part 1 was unexpected and much more satisfying. With the reduced ammo capacity, I experimented more. I played more cautiously than in the base game. It was more engaging. Once again, I had no idea where the plot was going, and the ending reveal was amazing. A big budget shooter going stealth pacifist in the last DLC is wild, and does a great job contrasting the rest of the game. If the game is going to let us play the three main characters, it makes sense gameplay should vary between them. The depiction of Booker in Burial at Sea Part 2 is one of my favorite characters in the franchise. It shows you how Elizabeth saw him in the main game. Part 2 has one of my favorite scenes in any game, the transorbital lobotomy. It's brutal, and yet I could not look away. The sound design with each tap, the visual distortion, Atlas's attempts at persuasion, and the sound when he removes the needle after realizing you do not care about yourself, and what he does with that information. The rest of the game, as short as that is, I was kind of terrified. I played it more cautiously than any other point in the game, even though you can't die. I no longer had any idea of what the game would be willing to throw at me. I don't believe in auteur theory. But I didn't think this game was perfect at the time. The Ghost Mother fight, mentioned already, makes no sense. It wasn't fun either. Fighting the Vox Populi being mechanically the same as fighting Comstock's forces was a disappointment, as I would have enjoyed quite a bit more variety. But I never stopped having fun playing the game. The handyman fights could have had a bit more depth to them. I know they have a weak point, but I wish it was more complex than that. I also remember thinking the upgrade drinks felt really disappointing. That's it. That's my list of complaints against the game when I first played it. Thinking about this game after years of playing it, I can still see why I loved it, but I guess I should see if I still do. I'm worried that the both sidesing in this game is going to be a lot worse than I realized. If the gameplay doesn't grab me anymore, it won't bother me too much, but if I no longer find Booker and Elizabeth compelling, then this is going to suck to do. See you on the other side. Bioshock Infinite opens with a quote. The mind of the subject will desperately struggle to create memories where none exist. While my own memory of this game was, as is expected, better than the actual game. Having now replayed it on medium difficulty, it has dropped from a 10 out of 10 all the way down to a 9 out of 10. This game still is amazing to play. I beat it in only 3 sessions. The guns feel great. The foreshadowing at who Elizabeth is great.
Excuse me?
Annabelle, it's me, Esther.
Oh,
What? What is that moment? They just straight up tell you who she is in one of your first encounters. Holy shit, this game is telling you so many things without any context. And you just don't know that you're being told important things. I forgot that this game had places you can backtrack to. It's pretending to be a Bioshock game. I stopped noticing that after the first 3 hours, so I think they forgot it was a Bioshock game after the first 3 hours. That, or I just was blind. The game was as good as I remember it being, and then you meet Daisy Fitzroy. The 9 out of 10 doesn't mean it's a 9 out of 10 the whole way through. The first 3 hours are a 10 out of 10 still. After you meet Daisy on the airship, it starts falling apart pretty quickly. It goes down to about a 6. It really doesn't even pick back up until the ghost fight. Not the fight itself, just the audio logs during that fight. After the ghost fight, the game goes back to roughly a 9. But the middle, it's rough. The stuff I disliked and liked did not change from before. It's just more defined. Daisy Fitzroy makes a bad antagonist because I don't want to fight her. I don't have a reason to. Hell, I don't have a reason to fight the old army general either. I forgot the old army general even existed, and that's the issue. They aren't important to the plot. They are speed bumps that stop you from getting to the plot. However, the old army general, at least, while he is not really that important, does set up who Comstock is and foreshadows who the player is as well. This is the bad section, and here I'm defending it. The issue is, with the old general, I agree with Booker when he says, I don't want to fight you. But the game seems to think that we should want to fight against the Vox. I get Daisy not trusting us when the Booker she knew she saw die, and now there's a new Booker here. You also killed Daisy so quickly, yet keep fighting the Vox. She is enough of a unifying voice to convince everyone to turn on you in an instant, but her death doesn't affect the cause at all. Okay, sure. Honestly, I'm glad we didn't get a replacement villain after she died, because that would not help. But the Vox plotline probably should have been dropped entirely by that point. Gameplay-wise, I still agree with myself that the Vox being functionally identical to fight does not help the game at all. It might be if you're a centrist who thinks that this is great commentary that shows that everyone is the same, but as a leftist, it's dull storytelling and gameplay. The handyman fights still suck. I got lucky that the one you're meant to fight during the Daisy confrontation must have fallen to his death because I heard him say something once and then I never saw him again. I never used Undertow or the RAM power-up. I basically only used the RPG and the hand cannon the entire game. It did get slightly annoying how many times in the game you'd make progress just for it to go, nah-uh-uh, and something outside of your control stops you immediately. Getting back to the airship, only for Songbird to instantly destroy it, was just a oh come on moment. I also remember Songbird being more present in the story than he actually was. I've heard lots of people complain that it makes no sense why Elizabeth would go through the tear and expect the Daisy of that universe to honor the deal. And while that's fair, the reason is pretty simple. The Lutesses, they straight up tell them, do this thing, and they listen to the quantum people who were wrong, but that's because the quantum people have an agenda and they're using you. But you're listening to the people who seem to be pretty all-knowing. That's why. The Boys of Silence segment, while technically a welcome change of pace, it does feel like it was plagued by constant redesign. There's these guys with big ears and you have to avoid their, take a guess, line of sight. Sure, okay. Daisy Fitzroy turns evil after being pushed far enough, and so does Elizabeth. After being left behind and tortured for decades, she caves. The difference between them and Booker is that Booker's sins were his own. If I could make a 4 to 5 hour cut of this game that was just Booker, Elizabeth, Comstock bits, and cut out all the Vox and speed bumps, this game would still be a 10 out of 10 for me. I realize we need the Vox side questing to set up walking through tears and the wish fulfillment aspect of them, but I'm sure it could be done. Actually, I don't know if I want Daisy removed. The more I think about it, the more she is such a great foil for Elizabeth, but she's just almost great. I guess the middle's problem isn't that it's bad or dull, but that it has so much importance while just not being anywhere near as compelling. Still don't believe in auteur theory. I really like the ghost fight. Not mechanically, her summoning the dead and all feels really out of place, even with multiple realities, vigors, and whatever Songbird is, but the writing during that scene is a lot better than I remembered. I guess I wish if they were going to go fantastical, they'd go a bit further. Death Stranding gets away with it because it goes so far out there. Tears being wish fulfillment was not something I had remembered. It changes the entire context of Daisy turning evil and Booker being dead in that reality. I mean, hey, Elizabeth wanted to go to France. She got to. I think Elizabeth killing Daisy is a great moment, especially how afterwards she puts on her mother's dress.
I guess it runs in the family.
That feels like quite the condemnation of Elizabeth. I appreciate how willing it is to not sugarcoat how awful and racist old America was. The Museum for War Crimes is ugly. The lottery is ugly. It is shocking how ugly it is. The ugliness is such a great contrast for how otherwise pristine everything is, how peaceful it all seems. I'd forgotten the game has a monument to John Wilkes Booth. That hurt. Songbird's death scene is impactful. I love they don't tell you what he is. Machine? Creature? Person? Does it matter? Would that answer change anything about the story? Songbird was Elizabeth's only friend. Songbird is domestically abusive. The Lutesses feel like a stand-in for the developers. Would you kindly follow along with the plot they set for you? I had forgotten just how bad of a person Booker was. Quite amazing how both this and The Last of Us tried to do bad person main character, but only one of them managed to make a game and a character I liked. Whichever one you like. Way to go, Troy Baker. Throughout Infinite, Booker keeps getting layers torn down, and each one reveals a worse detail. And the entire time, I kept liking him. As sin after sin is listed, he wants redemption. And his source of redemption switches from paying off his debts to doing right by someone. But either way, the only way he knows to get redemption is through violence. His intentions improve as we learn worse things, keeping him in this balance that lets us side with him all throughout until he drowns and we're left confused at how we are even meant to feel. Could Booker be redeemed for what he did? Maybe. The post-credit scene sets up a, okay, sure. Do I think he deserves redemption? No? But either way is fine by me. I think the game's asking you, do you think America deserves redemption? Again, 10 years on, Elizabeth still has some of the best writing and acting for a female character in a video game. Wait, actually, sorry, I just realized I don't think I've played any AAA prestige game since then. The Wolfenstein reboots have great female characters, but they aren't as close to the story as Elizabeth. And all my favorites don't have voice acting. Yeah, my taste in games doesn't really help me actually have any commentary on this subject, so I like how Elizabeth goes from this sheltered femininity and then it changes into this defensive anger and then all-knowing annihilation. Despite previous jokes I've made about Bioshock Infinite, I think it does actually have things to say about religion and Americana. When I was a very small child, I visited my great-grandparents in Kentucky. I also got to meet my great-aunt by blood and great-uncle by marriage. This game captures that feeling of driving through a serene landscape with old-timey architecture, filled with enough churches that you could hold your breath between their sidings, and the most Confederate flags per capita I've ever seen. There's a mix of beauty, the appearance of faith, with this gut feeling that something is wrong. As an adult, thinking back on that moment, I realized that despite all the NASCAR magazines, my great-uncle by marriage and not by blood was not asking 6-year-old me if I was a racer. He died of breast cancer. He was lactating in his final months. That's not a joke, but it's okay to laugh. The violence in this game, I believe, is necessary for how it is trying to do Americana. The violence in Booker is part of his American heritage as a soldier and a Pinkerton. I do think it should have less combat, or just be shorter in general. Just pick the fights that mean anything, and remove the rest. While I want a 5-hour game, selling a 5-hour game with no mechanical replayability for $60 in 2013 would not have flown. No one would publish that. The mix of beauty and hatred here is done so well. The oppressed rising up and returning the violence is great, in theory. Could have been handled a lot better. I don't care if the upper class complacent in slavery gets killed. They created their own demise. They deserve what they get. While Comstock's forces are given so much thought for how evil they are, the Vox just seem like a Marvel villain. Oh no, the ends don't justify the means! Boo-hoo! Complicity is violence too, asshole. This side does evil thing for evil reason. This side does good thing for bad reason. Morality is gray. Shit to your writing. Keep it out of your attempts at political commentary. If you think I hate critiques of leftists, why did I love Disco Elysium? The issue with the Vox is that they aren't representative of anything. What do they believe? What is their political philosophy? They aren't anything. They're just an opposing force. God, I wish this game was not so centrist. It does a great job of critiquing the right, and then it'll just say something so stupid. It acts like Daisy's shift in character is a personal failure and not entirely Comstock's fault. The highs within Infinite still outshine the problems I have with it. However, the problems are there. It's a 9 out of 10 with a couple dozen asterisks. Upon replaying Burial at Sea Part 1, wow, it fixes every complaint I had about the base game. No centrist politics, gameplay that requires me to use more than just the same 2 guns and vigors. This is the best pieces of Infinite. The DLC once again shows off how good their creative direction is with pre-fall Rapture. Shrinking our max ammo pool is a great decision. Seeing the parallels between this Booker and our Booker shows us how much Elizabeth has changed. It feels just enough like a different game to feel fresh. Burial at Sea also feels like it's comparing the Splicers to pedos. It makes the evil ending of Bioshock 1 feel even worse. I never played an evil playthrough of Bioshock. I think most evil playthroughs are really poorly written. Removing moral choices from Bioshock was a good call. I hadn't realized that during the base game. I will rarely replay a game, even more rarely 100% a game. Replaying a game for the evil ending is something I only did once for Infamous 2. Am I gonna make a video about Infamous one of these days? It does feel strange for the DLC to give you so many plasmid upgrades and not enough money to get most of them? And then the infusions still go up to 10, but there's only 4 to be found in the entire game. Some could complain that it's too short at 90 minutes long, but I just got done saying that Bioshock Infinite should be 3 hours shorter. So how quickly this ends helps sell the ending. Telling the player, you're right about to reach the ending, would make it worse. Part 2, man, I love the Baguette Boy. The bird singing on her finger, it's so beautiful and so obviously fake. It's wish fulfillment. Once again, Infinite shows its hand early, gotta respect the confidence. Burial at Sea Part 2 reveals it all during the opening. It tells you what is going to happen. If you look around France, there are spoilers all throughout. The table Sally will be tied down on. The chair you will be tortured in. The gameplay is also changed. Elizabeth isn't her father, and so killing a room full of people isn't really an option. So it's a stealth game. Pay attention for the different types of surfaces you walk on, and their noise levels. Changing the gameplay between each character you play is such a great decision, and makes it feel incomplete without the DLC. Is this a great stealth game? No, but it changes the mood, and that's great. They immediately drop the splicers wanting a little sister's Adam is allusion to pedophilia, and instead go for, you don't have to be like your father, you don't have to kill. I only use the guns on the turrets. Elizabeth in Part 2 is a mix of the softer side of herself we've seen in Infinite, and the darker parts we saw in Part 1. Stripped of her omniscience and her powers, no longer wanting revenge, but, like Booker, searching for redemption. The darker side is still there, seen during the attempted lobotomy. That scene is still amazing. Atlas's voice actor gives the best performance in all of video games right there. Ghost Booker works even more for me the second time around, having seen so much foreshadowed in the France scene. Why is Elizabeth's tower there? Because we're going back to Columbia. Ghost Booker reminded me of myself while replaying this. Remembering the beats but letting Elizabeth fill in the details. Booker is the second playthrough. This Booker is the American dream to our Booker's American reality. When you go to Columbia, you see Daisy Fitzroy again. This DLC changes Daisy's motives. I do not know how to feel about this. I prefer her turn as a foil to Elizabeth's turn in the reality where Booker doesn't save Elizabeth. Also, if it was faked, why doesn't she call off the Vox? What does sending her people to try to kill you do to help her cause? To quote Daisy, Daisy just complicates the narrative. It feels like a retcon to win people over who hated that scene the first time. If you had the confrontation and Elizabeth kills her and that turns the Vox against you, that would make more sense to me? Whatever. Who knows? Well, I do mostly dislike the change. I do like how Daisy now both teaches Elizabeth to kill as well as to sacrifice herself. In either version of Daisy's identity, she is a foil to Elizabeth. I do hate how the Vox shoot at you before Daisy has even said you are an enemy. Also, the Vox just casually saying, I haven't killed anyone today, is such an eye-roll moment. I'm sorry, I do not buy this writing. I even like how empathetic it is to Burial Part 1 Booker. Did he deserve it? He was trying to save Sally. Once again, the game is asking you if redemption is possible. Maybe, but you won't be there to see it. I respect the game deciding that the player character dies at the end of each of their stories. The only point in the games where you don't see from a first-person perspective happens because there is no longer a first person there to be perceiving. More than just redeeming Bioshock Infinite, it also makes me almost like the stupid, cheesy ending of Bioshock 1. Even if reversing the irreversible Big Daddy transformation is still beyond stupid. Do I understand how Elizabeth's actions take effect after she erased Booker and Comstock? Hell no. Do I even understand how drowning Booker at the baptism has that effect? It says it does. Fuck it. Sure. Booker, Elizabeth, Comstock, and the Lutesses are all compelling and well-written characters. They're good enough characters for me to not care about any plot hole that might show up after inspecting every detail of this game with a microscope. There are still problems I have without that microscope, and those matter. But I can't bring myself to be upset about a lot of the nitpicks. Sorry if you've lost respect for me because of that, but I still love this game. If you think my love of this game has blinded me from those flaws, yes, that's what I'm saying. Congratulations, you've understood my argument. Through Americana, it critiques how nostalgia can be corrupted, as seen by the Founding Fathers welcoming you into this slavery-loving murder festival. The War Memorial shows us this as well. Perhaps it's darkly ironic for me to say I'm fine with nostalgia blinding me to the problems present about a game that's deeply critical of how clinging to the past can be very harmful. I don't know a way to say, I see the flaws and I don't care. That doesn't come off like I'm some conservative radical. I don't like nostalgia. It can be dangerously similar to nihilism. Nostalgia isn't inherently bad, however, but here I have stated that I'm using nostalgia to remain purposefully ignorant of flaws. I believe Infinite doesn't want me to use nostalgia to blind me to the political problems here. However, my argument isn't for nostalgia. I think the issue I have is with a form of critique that wants to turn good or bad into some rubric all art falls into. Now that I'm smarter, I see plot holes and deduce that this art is bad actually. Fuck that. Have some empathy for your past self. To quote the film adaptation, you can have flaws, problems, but wow them in the end, and you got a hit. Do I think this game is really a 9 out of 10? Maybe. The harshest rating I could give this game is a 7 out of 10. In that reality, I'd say Bioshock 1 is still the worst Bioshock, and Bioshock 2 is the best. But I'm not in that one. The one we are in, I still award it to Infinite. Does this multiverse stuff still feel cool and smart in these days of so much multiverse content? That isn't the important part of the game. That is just the setup for the character drama. Look, when writing any sort of sci-fi, you have to pick what your interest in the topic is. Is it for how you can emphasize the details of your story? Or is your story about the details of the topic? Pick what you want out of the story. I'm not saying it's impossible to do both, but maybe just judge it off of what it wants to be judged as. Primer is not good character drama. Arrival does not do a good job of being science fiction, but Arrival does a great job with character drama and philosophy of language. The ending of Arrival is a flaw big enough to make me hate the entire film. But I don't. Should you judge every piece of art by the same standards? Should you judge it by its own goals? Should you judge its goals? Does it matter if it doesn't hold up to repeated experiences? Does knowing who survives the horror movie kill the tension on your second viewing? Does it matter that the Darth Maul fight is technically bad when examined by a master sword fighter? Why does it matter that they're not aiming for their heads if you never notice that? Spoiler, none of this is real. A fight scene isn't only the choreography. A fight scene is the tension behind it, the music, the shot composition, and the combination of all of those things. I dislike episode 1. How are we meant to interact with the work of art the second time? Is it fair to expect a work of art to impact us as much the second time when art doesn't change? Does Bioshock Infinite's multiverse nonsense ruin the drama? Do the bad critiques of the left hurt the critiques of the right? I keep asking myself which experience matters more. I hated Bioshock 2 on my first playthrough and instantly bounced off of it. Should I factor that into how I think of this game now? I thought the band Big Thief was incredibly average until one day I overheard them playing at the local record store and it just clicked for me. And now they have an album in my top 10 of all time. I left the theater disappointed by Blade Runner 2049 and its soundtrack. By the next morning, I wanted to see it again. By the end of the year, I owned the soundtrack on CD. How many times have friends recommended a TV show that gets good after the first 4 hours? James Cameron's The Abyss is a great film if you remove the space aliens and the last 10 minutes. Do I let the ending of The Abyss ruin Ed Harris's acting? I dislike James Cameron. I started replaying Elden Ring in preparation for the DLC to come out, and to my complete surprise, I wasn't enjoying it. Because I'm better at this game than I was beating bosses using only 3 flasks, meaning I wasn't getting the rush of just getting by. I was dealing out enough damage to kill Vortisax at level 80 first attempt, and I'd missed him during my last playthrough. Ronnie's questline had already gotten me a plus 10 Spirit Ash and a plus 8 weapon, so I could one-shot all enemies, but a lot of them could also one-shot me because I'd forgot to level Vigor. Oops. I had optimized the fun out of this game. I reluctantly leveled up my health and kept going. I made it to Moog. I killed him before the phase transition and started the DLC before even getting to Farum Azula. Shadow of the Erdtree reminded me why I love Elden Ring. I loved the exploration, I loved learning a boss's moveset, I loved getting through a boss with 0 flasks remaining. Basic enemies now require more focus than the base game's bosses. R'Lana of the Twin Moons had me laughing out loud when I finally beat her from the relief that came from not dying to the Twin Moon Slam that had one-shot me every previous attempt. I think 40 Vigor isn't enough for this DLC. Still, my second playthrough of Elden Ring before I got to the DLC. Was it good? I did not enjoy it. I felt like it was work I was doing to get to the DLC. So, do I still think this is in my top games of all time? Of course, because until some game comes around that gives me that great feeling of wonder when I keep discovering something new, when I think I've seen the end of it, this will still be there. As there is art that I can grow to love after first hating, that first experience doesn't matter compared to my new appreciation. When new experiences don't measure up, they don't have to matter. We decide which experiences matter to us. Bioshock Infinite mattered to me a decade ago. That's enough. I'm surprised with how this video turned out. I was expecting to be disappointed, especially by the gameplay. I wanted this to be a video about how are we meant to outgrow media, and also figured I could briefly touch the whole Americana topic. I don't know why I still love this game. I definitely did not expect to. I don't know why everyone hates the gunplay. Everything about this seemed fun. I still liked it. I'm not wanting to downplay any of the dozens of asterisks I have with this game, but I still love it. I did not intend for this video to accidentally capstone my previous 3 videos with it tying into Demon Souls by being about the unimportance of a rating system, Outer Wilds with how do you replay something, and then Kentucky Route Zero with Americana. That wasn't meant to happen. I just kind of did this one as a joke video because I needed something to fill time. Oops. Thinking about this game did make me think for some reason about the film Tenet. It's a garbage film, but I didn't hate it. After watching it, I thought, man, if I watched this while I was intoxicated, this would be great, and I can now verify. Yes, I was correct about that. The point I want to make with Tenet is that when explaining how to fire a backwards gun, the woman tells the protagonist, don't think, feel. And the film is just telling you how to engage with it. When I just feel the film and have some help turning off the thinking side, I had a great time. To some extent, I feel like Bioshock Infinite doesn't want you thinking too hard about some of its stuff. It wants you to be thinking that so you notice the cool foreshadowing and connect the dots at the end, but I don't think it wants you thinking too hard about some of the time travel stuff that doesn't line up. You can choose if that matters to you. The script for this part says insert blunder joke here. I'm not gonna do that. Sorry. While I was editing this video, King K dropped a video about Mario Sticker Star. And damn, he said everything I was trying to. Watch that video, it's pretty good. Oh, and if I ever decide I should film a video outside again, remind me not to. That was a mistake. I told myself after Outer Wilds to never do that again, and then I did it again, and I regret it. I'm sorry about the airplanes. There's just a lot of airplanes. I can't do anything about that.